my confession was that I did not listen to the budget. And you will hear in my presentation why I did not listen to it. I did read it once it went onto the minister's website. I had to find the best way to get to the information in, because I just didn't think that it would be worth 3 hours of my life. And what struck out, honestly, for me for the onset was the number of times that the minister continued with that PNM campaign of no one left behind. Yet from the very get-go, you see in the Guardian newspaper today, 800 students left behind. And I guess that was why I found it difficult to listen to the budget. After the CNC3, former Minister of Finance, Mrs. Karen Nunes Teixeira, she had said at the end of the day, this administration has failed to implement anything. So it's a constant wait and see, regardless of what comes in the budget. It's a wait and see, because each time, they've just failed to deliver. In the actual budget statement, we see that, $50 million is allocated for the provision of laptops. In the same breath, though, the minister spoke about 65,000 students being without laptops. So, if we do the math, even if this administration is able to surprise us and implement this initiative 100% perfectly, that's still only 25% of those that need laptops that are gonna get. You know what I mean? Again, that is a far cry from no one left behind. You look at the increase in personal tax allowance. According to the minister, 250,000 employees are going to benefit. The labor force is over 630,000 persons. 30% is no one left behind. Stamp duty for first-time owners, again, when you do the numbers, less than 1%. So it's not 1%, it's less than 1% of persons are going to benefit. And I just have a problem with that sort of, you're promising no one being left behind, but the numbers are there. These are not even numbers that we are bringing to the table. These are your numbers. So you've set a budget where you're starting off that even if you implement it perfectly, you're only capturing 20-30% of the country. You look at the MiFi devices, again, the timing is a little too late. It's going to start rolling off in the first quarter of 2020 when children are due to be back in school. There's that meme in Trinidad, that make any sense? Because they've now gone back into brick and mortar. So it's too late. Today, in that same actual Guardian article, parents are complaining because, of course, broadband depends on cellular networks. And these cellular networks have said that in some of these areas, it's too sparsely populated to be able, it doesn't make sense for them to set up that infrastructure needed for this MiFi device to even work. So I think that we are spinning top in mud. And, on the topic of infrastructure, the minister in his presentation said that, to become fully digital, the government must ensure that ICT infrastructure is made available to all citizens. And this is something that is a PNM failure. That's a mindset of the PNM that's a failure. That focus on building infrastructure rather than developing human capital is the reason that a lot of these initiatives never come to pass. I'm gonna give you a personal story of mine. My daughter has a $3,000 phone and she's 10 years old. And many people cannot see why we would allow a 10-year-old to have a $3,000 phone. But for us, we don't see that phone as entertainment or a toy or anything like that. The mindset has changed. This is now an investment into her future. And using such a smartphone, she's now able to do photography, videography, graphic design. In fact, today I needed KFC and she went on their app, signed up, ordered KFC from her phone. And that's something that I certainly cannot do. And so are we prepared to help parents, help teachers, help the country as a whole move into that mindset? How can we speak of digitization when we've not rolled out such programs to help us switch from cursive writing versus the art of speaking into a camera? A lot of children are just simply not savvy with this thing in their hand. And we take it for granted, maybe because our privilege is showing, that children understand how to use this thing and that they will, or that parents understand even the benefits of allowing a child such a device. And that's something that comes way before we even start to talk about the infrastructure. If we're not, at least not talking about it simultaneously, then again we're spinning top in mud. I mean, I I I facilitated a symposium on administrative education several years ago, and one of the students gave a brutally honest presentation. And I have to agree with her now that we're again talking about, digitization and whatnot. As a country, we are still battling schools with no running water, no light bulbs in the classrooms, a high rate of unsupported children at home, due to, of course, the inability of many parents to read and write, let alone use a computer. We still have very high rates of abuse, and we now have children out of school. We know that when children are out of school, those rates of abuse increase. We've not heard any of that mentioned at all in the budget, which for me particularly, that of course is an area area of my passion. To know what are the details. Are we going to see that the already bad figures are now totally gone through the roof because children have been at home unsupported, many times unsupervised for the last how many ever months? Will we now end up with a major problem? Because I'm certainly not seeing anything in the budget that talks about increasing social workers, having social workers visit the homes, working with Children's Authority to ensure that, we talk about the most vulnerable, but we're really not putting details into that most vulnerable. So a lot of details came out, but I didn't see any kind of details as to we will work with MPs, work with schools, work with XYZ to say they will go to the schools, go to the teachers, go to the families to really ensure that what's happening should happen. And so that definitely concerns me, is where we're talking digitization when we still have a massive issue with just plain out neglect and children not being able to eat when the day comes. Mr. Hammersmith, it starts from the basic theme of the budget. Even that just leaves me feeling hopeless. Because when you look at the word reset, the technical definition is bringing things back to a state of zero. So that just says the mindset of the administration from the get-go. It's not about moving forward. It is about constantly bringing it back to a state of zero. And that's what's happened with the budget for the last 5 years. And now the first year, well, really the 6th year, because there's been no change really in the administration. And it's a constant, and that's what we're seeing. We are seeing a copy and paste. We're seeing the same rehash of the public, the gaming bills and Revenue Authority. And of course, in 2015, they promised broadband and they're bringing it back in 2020. So it is a constant reset. It's a constant going back to the first budget and hoping 6 years later, you're going to somehow get it right this time, And I'm going to close now, but what I want to give, I guess, is a little bit of what are citizens to do, because I presented Tuesday and someone commented, we can all say what we don't like, what we expected to hear, what we want to see. But what is a citizen supposed to do at this point in time now? Are we going to just struggle for the next 5 years and hope that, citizens do a different, choose differently next time and whatnot? And in closing, I really want to urge citizens to do exactly like what Nation First is doing. Really pressure the government, keep the government accountable at every single step of the way. In the budget presentation, for example, the minister quoted that on November 30th, the WASA report will, that's the date that he's saying that we will get the WASA report. I think every single citizen should put in their calendar November 30th, so that on that day, we all step up and we make our voices heard and we say, listen, where's the report that you promised me? So as citizens, I think we really need to pay attention, go through all the statements that are on the website, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, bring our voices to the table and really get this government working. Stop believing all the excuses, and it's now time for them to take that 2015 budget that they've brought back in 2020 and make it work for us. Our power didn't end on August 10th. We have to now more than ever. The country cannot afford another 5 years of non-delivery and non-implementation. So that is my call to all citizens at this point in time to really, really make our voices heard. That's it for me for now. Thank you very much again. And back over to you, Mr. Hamelsmith.